Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
It's where the people's business gets done in San Diego, and those who work behind the scenes are not happy. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Workers say they're being mistreated and retaliated against by the company that employs them. John Carroll tells us about what one janitor says happened to her that has led to the threat of a strike.
The chanting and marching outside the county administration building today has its roots in an incident last November. It happened in the basement. Sofia Martinez says it happened to her. The last 2 months have been hell. Ever since they found out I was one of the leaders of the union, they have been overworking me, Martinez said. But not just overworking. Martinez says her employer, Nova Commercial Company, told her to get on her hands and knees and clean this floor in the basement. She says she was directed to remove wax with noxious cleaning agents, with no mask, no gloves, no goggles or knee pads. She says she got a bloody nose and became nauseous. She says she reached her wit's end the next day when she says she was told to keep doing the same thing, but was refused the safety equipment she needed. Shortly after that, she was fired. But it's not just Martinez.
The workers have been put through really retaliatory measures, and 2 workers have been terminated. 2 have quit as a result of the actions of the employer.
Justice for janitors!
The janitorial workers here are members of SEIU, United Service Workers West. They're threatening to strike if Nova doesn't reinstate the fired workers and improve working conditions. Barring that, the policy director of the local here in San Diego was blunt about what he says will happen to Nova.
We're not going to take it anymore, and your days in this county are numbered, and we're going to make sure that you get the hell out of this county.
The increasing power of unions in San Diego was evident here. Members of every other major union showed up to lend their support. We reached out to the cleaning company, Nova, for a comment, but no one got back to us. They will have to respond to the county, though, which has placed them under investigation. Along the Embarcadero, John Carroll, KPBS News.
And we're seeing another example of the extreme measures some migrants are taking to travel north from Central and South America. Mexican law enforcement stopped a trailer with more than 250 people packed inside. They say the group comes from Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and Ecuador. The driver was arrested. Mexican officials have not said what's next for the migrants. Advocates for Friendship Park are calling on local officials to appeal to the Department of Homeland Security to once again halt planned construction of border walls at the park. They say the newest version of the plan is a step backwards. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado has a look at what it means for one family.
Mirna Gallegos is a dreamer. She has a special work permit and can't cross the border, so she's relied on Friendship Park for almost 20 years to visit with her mom and dad. She finds comfort in the smallest of access that was allowed.
You can hug them, you can be with them. It means a lot to me.
Gallegos says she's endured restricted access to the park during the pandemic and construction of the new 30-feet walls.
It was really hard for me to see them. You know, they were so close, but at the same time so far. It was really, really painful.
That construction was paused last summer due to public outcry. But this week, Customs and Border Protection released their long-awaited plan for the binational park. CBP says their plan meets border security requirements and addresses community concerns. But park advocates are rejecting it, saying the plan is ugly.
In our view, the announcement by U.S. Border Patrol of their plans to build 2 new 30-foot walls at Friendship Park is a tragedy. We believe that President Joe Biden is effectively choosing to complete Donald Trump's border wall at the most historic location on the U.S.-Mexico border.
The Friends of Friendship Park say they've been given a description of the plan, including a spot where the walls will be lowered by 18 feet. But they say that's a desecration of the site. They say they hoped border officials would reflect on what the park meant to families like the Gallegos and others who need it to connect with loved ones.
This piece of land is very special to us. It's considered sacred land. It's considered sacred land because of what family represents to us. That's why to us it's very devastating.
Advocates say the binational park that has provided families comfort since 1971 has become more and more restricted by CBP. And they say maybe this is proof the park should not be under their control.
To put an enforcement agency in charge of a space like this is not logical. There should be a different agency in charge, or there should be more involvement from people who have a different purpose in mind for the space besides enforcement.
Gallego says she'll hold on to the memories of happier times she had at Friendship Park because they're the last ones she has of her father, who has since died.
I have pictures of my dad when my kids were little, and he'll have his hands on the other side and my kids, their little fingers together, you know. And I'm saving those memories.
She hopes others can at least get that. Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
It's not a runway, but for a pilot in trouble over North County this morning, it was the next best thing. The FAA says the plane started having engine problems when the pilot made an emergency landing right on the shore of Carlsbad State Beach. 3 people were inside the plane. California State Parks says that they all evacuated safely. The plane was on its way to Orange County after taking off from San Diego's Montgomery Field. President Joe Biden is in California tonight, arriving in the Bay Area this afternoon to get a first-hand look at recent storm damage. San Diego got by relatively unscathed compared to the Central Coast. Today, FEMA announced the president is making extra disaster aid available. A major disaster declaration was made last weekend.
Well, Governor, you and I got to stop taking these helicopter rides. We've made a bunch of them. You've been hit. If anybody doubts the climate is changing, then they must have been asleep for the last couple of years.
One of President Biden's first stops was the damaged Capitola Pier in Santa Cruz County. In higher elevations, portions of the Sierra Nevada mountains reported up to 15 feet of snow over a 3-week period. More money is coming to San Diego to reduce wildfire risk. The Biden administration is announcing $500 million from recently passed spending bills to go toward forest restoration. This will be focused on western states, including several locations in San Diego County. The Biden administration says it's part of its larger plan to deal with climate change. Local beach towns are gearing up for another significant climate event, the King Tide. KPBS reporter Claire Strong went to see how Del Mar is preparing.
It's been a busy few weeks for lifeguards in Del Mar. First, there was high surf and heavy rain, which led to beach closures and flooding. And now they're bracing for king tides, which is a non-scientific term used to describe exceptionally high tides that usually occur during a new or full moon.
We're watching the weather patterns, we're watching the surf forecast, that type of thing. In some of the areas we do have the barricades up. So that limits the coastal flooding and intrusion back onto the streets, protects some of the homes, that type of thing.
The recent heavy rain and high surf has washed away large amounts of sand, leaving less of a buffer between the waves and people's houses. Locals are now placing sandbags outside to protect their homes from flooding. Chad Henrik is renovating a house on 29th Street and had a near miss last Friday when a huge wave breached the property's seawall.
It obviously came up over the wall, completely destroyed the seawall here, broke off a big chunk of our seawall, knocked a glass panel out. Had a little bit get in the house, but we actually survived pretty well compared to a couple of these other houses up and down the area.
Lifeguards have also closed off beach entrances like this one here for safety reasons.
We're going to have very little beach access in the mornings during this cycle, and more so in the afternoon. So obviously it couples in with the surf size, the surf interval, onshore winds, and then what's happening from our river valleys and how much water we're getting from the east as well, which is going to determine how accessible and how much recreation capabilities are available on each public beach.
The king tide is expected to peak at over 7 feet early on Saturday. Claire Strong, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, the U.S. hits its borrowing limit, forcing the Treasury to take extraordinary measures to avoid default. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Some women give birth outside the hospital because their babies come too quickly and they don't make it in on time. But a growing number now plan to have a home birth with a certified midwife. KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser says the number has shot up since the beginning of the pandemic.
You gonna smile?
It's a warm afternoon and Emily is cuddled up on the couch with her baby Willow. She remembers how excited she was in early 2022 when she found out she was pregnant. But she was a lot less excited about the idea of giving birth in a hospital, especially during COVID.
Like there might be restrictions on how many people can come in, and you probably have to wear a mask.
Emily asked to be identified by only her first name for privacy. She says COVID restrictions led her to think about alternatives. She wanted to avoid the medical interventions that can come in a hospital. Then she had an unsettling prenatal appointment.
That my goal was to have an unmedicated birth. She kind of chuckled a little bit and she said, you know, a lot of women come in saying that, but they end up getting an epidural.
That was when Emily made up her mind. She would hire a midwife and give birth at home. Since the onset of the pandemic in early 2020, the number of home births has climbed dramatically, both nationally and in San Diego County. Countywide, the number rose by 28% from before COVID to the end of 2022. Midwives legally can oversee births without doctor supervision and usually bring medical tools, including oxygen tanks, suturing kits, and medication for hemorrhaging. Despite the growing popularity of home births, medical experts still say a hospital is the safest place to have a baby. Here's Dr. Alice Sutton, an OBGYN at UC San Diego.
There are some complications with birth that we just can't predict in advance.
Emily says she considered the possibility of complications, but felt safe because she lives only 5 minutes away from a hospital. Sutton says 5 minutes can be too long.
It takes time to get in the ambulance and get transferred to the hospital. And time can mean more time that someone is bleeding.
She says the most serious risk is the baby could die during labor or after delivery. Research shows that up to a third of women attempting home births end up going to the hospital. But the most common reason isn't a dangerous complication. It's because the mother is exhausted. Her labor has gone on too long and she needs relief from an epidural or other pain medication.
All the medical supplies, we try to hide them so they looks a bit more personal.
Licensed midwife Heather Lemaster has seen her business boom during the pandemic.
It's been instrumental for families to really stop and go, wait a minute, I have other options. There's a variety of places that I can have my baby.
Lemaster charges $6,800 for a home birth and $2,000 more if a woman wants to come to her birth center. Insurance usually doesn't cover the cost. She says for home births, she involves the whole family as much as possible, including what she calls catching the baby the moment it's born.
Either the partners will catch, or if there's little siblings or maybe a little bit teenagers, sometimes they want to catch their sibling. And so I kind of help facilitate that as well. There's this an empowerment that comes from that's words can't describe.
When Emily's labor started, she alerted her midwife. She was in for a long haul, 37 hours of labor.
It was very painful, way more painful than I was anticipating.
She was able to push through the pain and remain at home. She created a soothing environment with scented candles, soft lighting, and Christian worship music.
And by the time we had her at 3 a.m, I'd been, pushing for 4 hours, which was intense. but it was perfect.
Her daughter Willow is now 3 months old and thriving. And Emily is grateful that from the first moments, she and Willow were able to bond at home. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
And that is just an example of the in-depth feature reporting from our KPBS newsroom. We have more on the KPBS YouTube page, and that is where you can also live stream KPBS Evening Edition weeknights at 5. For the first time in years, not a single community in California is in extreme drought. Today's update from the U.S. Drought Monitor shows more of the improvement made by recent storms in our state. Last week, there was still a small portion of Northern California in that bright red extreme category. There are still widespread severe drought in some areas. San Diego County ranks in the moderate category.
We'll see a few showers in our area this evening, but after that we will get into an extended stretch of dry weather as the weather pattern is showing signs of change. So that's part of our headlines. A couple light showers this evening, then a dry pattern to follow. That pattern continues at least through the upcoming week. And with the flow turning offshore, we'll see some weak Santa Ana winds. They may get a little bit stronger over the weekend. So here's a look at the weather pattern. We're drying it out as high pressure starting to build here. This takes us through the end of January. So looks like tonight's showers are the last of the storminess. Tonight's temperatures will dip down to 47 degrees in the city with clearing skies. So a cool night ahead. Temperatures are dropping down to the 20s. Mount Laguna will be in the low 40s, El Cajon upper 30s in Ramona, and over to the coast and Oceanside 41. Here's our future satellite and radar, the last of the showers exiting. And then as the storm heads through the interior, we'll be looking at some snow. Here's our forecast for tomorrow. Looks like a dry day. And we'll see some partly sunny skies. It'll be a bit cool. Temperatures hovering in the low 60s. Mount Laguna hovering in the 30s. Saturday's weather shows us high pressure building over the Great Basin. We know what that means. That means offshore flow. It will be dry, and the temperatures will gradually warm. Looking ahead to next week, persistent offshore flow, and we'll have to watch out for the winds getting a little stronger at times. So here's our extended forecast. At the coast, sunny, cool, and dry. Some clouds around on Monday. Inland sections, sunshine through the weekend. Monday looks a little bit dull and dreary there. In the mountains, it's more of the same. Sunny, but a little chilly, a little breezy on Monday with the clouds. And in the deserts, we're dry here too. And we'll see some clouds on the increase on Monday. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Amazon is in trouble with the Labor Department over conditions at some of its warehouses. The Labor Department cited the company over worker safety. Total penalties could be in the tens of thousands of dollars. The issue is with 3 locations in Florida, Illinois, and New York. Amazon is accused of using methods to lift packages inside warehouses that led to some workers being injured. The way the U.S. pays its bills and issues payments for Social Security and other benefits is increasingly in question. That's because today the nation hit its debt ceiling with no easy fix in sight. Karen Kafa tells us what that could soon mean for everyday Americans.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said Thursday the U.S. hit the $31.4 trillion borrowing cap set by Congress. And while the Treasury Department will take measures to keep payments going on America's debt until June 5th, it steps up the pressure on Congress to come to an agreement or risk an unprecedented default.
This is about economic stability versus economic chaos.
With the potential for U.S. economic catastrophe, raising the debt ceiling has historically been a routine and bipartisan act. Congress most recently did it just over 1 year ago. But the dynamics of the new House Republican majority could prompt a drawn-out battle this round after Kevin McCarthy made concessions during his contentious speaker's election to hardline members of his party who want to use the debt ceiling as a bargaining chip in a debate over cutting future government spending.
Let's start paying this debt off.
Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell said he expects the White House will have to get involved in the discussions.
We'll end up in some kind of negotiation with the administration over what
the circumstances or conditions under which the debt ceiling be raised.
Potential consequences of a long debt ceiling standoff range from market turmoil, crashing Americans' retirement accounts, to the government being forced to prioritize federal payments, deciding which will come first among Social Security, federal salaries, and other payments. In Washington, Karen Kafa, KPBS News.
Eggs are not the only things flying off the shelves. Live chickens are also in demand as people search for a way to get around higher than normal egg prices. As KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne shows us, some local businesses are cashing in on the trend.
Hawthorne Country Store in Escondido is seeing something they've never experienced before.
We've never been sold out of chickens like this. Like, it's crazy.
Heather Thielen owns the feed and homestead supply store. She says usually during this time of year, their pens are full of chickens.
And we're getting calls every day, 2, 3, 4 calls every day asking, do you have chickens? Do you have chickens? Do you have chickens that are ready to lay? And we're like, nope, you got to start from scratch at this point, literally.
The avian flu outbreak is not only impacting egg prices, but supplies of chickens as well. Feed stores are only getting baby chicks right now, and they won't be ready to lay eggs for another 6 months. But Thielen says that's not turning people away, and even the baby chicks are getting sold right away.
Magically, the feed and the expense and the time and effort it goes into having these fantastic, wonderful, self-supporting food source is a little more worth it right now.
Thielen says the people really reaping the benefits right now are the ones that got pandemic chickens.
Oh, during COVID, a lot of people got chickens, and those people I think are happy right now, happier. They might have been going, oh, this is maybe too much work, or, you know, I've had some attrition. I don't know if I want to add new babies again. And now they're like, oh, well, maybe I do.
Thielen admits chickens are a commitment, but there are people that help with the job.
Hi, girls.
Like Allison Andrews Cantor, the owner of Cleaner Coops, a chicken coop cleaning company.
So as long as you keep up with maintenance or, you know, hire somebody to do it for you, then they're a wonderful addition to have to your family. They're great if you have small kids. If you're a senior at home, they're lovely companions. There's nothing better, in my opinion, than coming out in the morning on a sunny day in San Diego. Oh, we have one laying an egg, you hear it? And having a cup of coffee with your flock. It's awesome.
Cantor's clients didn't want to appear on camera because their HOA doesn't allow chickens in their community. But the homeowner says the chickens have been a great hobby for their elderly dad, popular during family parties, and a nice investment with the recent high egg prices. Andrew says the avian flu outbreak highlights how important cleanliness is for a food source.
And that's one of the reasons why, if you do have backyard chickens, you need to be mindful that cleanliness is a really big deal, especially if you have little ones at home or any family members and other pets.
She recommends setting up a hand washing station and dedicated shoes when handling the chickens.
And the best part of having chickens is they pay rent with their eggs. And right now, we all know that that's a huge value.
The other value, Cantor says, is the taste of your own homegrown eggs.
There's nothing better than knowing what you feed your flock comes directly back into you and on your plate. And I will tell you, once you've had your own eggs from your girls, there is nothing that compares.
To help with the recent interest in backyard chickens, Hawthorne Country Store is holding Chicken 101 courses in February. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Cute. Now, it can be easy to lose our sense of wonder as we get older, but one new museum in San Diego aims to restore that sense. KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us around the Wonder Museum.
The 134-year-old Brokers Building at 4th and Market has been the home for a number of businesses over the years, but nothing like this. This is the WNDR Wonder Museum. What is it? That's the first question I asked General Manager Andy Grants.
I would tell them it's an immersive art and technology experience. We're a very untraditional museum.
What Grants calls the museum's tagline underlines the untraditional descriptor. You'd be hard-pressed to find any other museum that proclaims, "We are all artists."
You're encouraged to touch things, flip switches, explore, open doors, participate in the art.
Participation takes place in several ways here. There are a number of screens where you direct your interaction with what's on the screen. On one, the interaction happens with one of several recognizable works of art. This one with Frida Kahlo's self-portrait.
In this museum, what is art and what is beauty is definitely in the eye of the beholder.
There is art that is not immersive per se, like this piece of a Keith Haring mural painted along FDR Drive in Manhattan in 1984. But the emphasis is definitely on interactive and immersive. There is this room where the artist has imagined a pantheon of gods building their society. The 8-minute presentation sees the society through to its destruction. And there is this. It's called Inside Out by Scottish artist Lee Soshwitz. It's a representation of a garden shed on her family's property in Scotland. Through light and sound, Soshwitz imagines one of many powerful, quickly moving thunderstorms she witnessed from the shed as a child. Viewed from outside or inside the shed, it is an enrapturing, all-consuming experience. Like other museums, the Wonder Museum entertains, enlightens, and educates, but perhaps more than anything, it lives up to its name in sparking a sense of wonder. John Carroll, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.